Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're well. For the benefit of those listening on the audio, my name's James, one half of the Planet FPL podcast, and you're listening to my regular Friday afternoon stream on YouTube, Ask James. But of course, it's Thursday, and the reason behind that is so me and Suj can give you a full review of game week 31 on Fridays during this restart period that we have. So the way this commonly works is I dive into the chat on YouTube and I'll answer any questions that are football related, and we'll get them covered in a little bit of detail. How long this lasts depends on how busy the chat is. Let's see who we've got in the chat. We will start with John Bailey. Says, hey James, how's your game week going? What's your thoughts on free hitting next game week and avoiding City Liverpool players? My game week is going let's say okay, 55, which is not overly what I'd want from wildcard. The main reason it's low is basically nearly every player I've got so far has returned, bar the one that I captained, which was Bruno Fernandes. But I think the theory behind what I wanted to do with my wildcard in terms of spreading funds to have quite a beefy bench to be able to alternate the 11 week on week is not a decision that I regret in spite of Mane and Salah's performance last night. I don't think you're going to see too many performances of the like of what Crystal Palace put in last night at Liverpool, which was, frankly, having seen a little bit more of it following my Champ Man stream last night, was pathetic. It didn't have a single touch in Liverpool's penalty area during the whole game. That's the first time that's happened since Opta started recording stats around about 12 years ago for this sort of thing. That's a staggering statistic that a whole football team would not have a single touch in the penalty area. But obviously Liverpool impressed. In terms of free hit for 32, yes, that was my original thinking, John, because my original plan was to carry through to game week 31, free hit 32, and then wildcard 33. No regrets on the change of decision that I've had. There is no thoughts for me to free hit next week. This is part of the strong bench thinking. I want a free hit when I walk into something bad, or I'm quite happy to hold it until game week 38 if necessary. It might be that it's a case that it's not something I really want, and if I see a week where I really want to make 4 solid changes, genuinely, I might just use the free hit for that at the moment if nothing becomes obvious. I certainly understand the theory. If you're sitting there with, I don't know, Trent, Robertson, Salah, De Bruyne, Ederson, Mahrez, then pull it. Yeah. But I think for me, sitting there at the moment with, I've got Trent, De Bruyne and Laporte. And at the moment, my thinking on that would be to play Trent and De Bruyne. I might change my mind on whether I go with Laporte, depending on what I see from City in the Chelsea fixture tonight and the Newcastle Cup game on, I think it's Sunday evening, isn't it? That may sway my thinking. My thinking will be that probably both teams will score in the game. That would be my initial instinct. I just can never leave Trent out. That's how it's become with him now. Even Man City away, it doesn't matter. Stick him in. He just needs a corner to get on the end of someone's head, or as proven last night with free kicks, etc. So he stays in. And De Bruyne's the same, really. Power in any game. More likely to get 90 minutes out of him in that sort of game, you would anticipate. So I think I would still play those two. If you've got 5 or 6, then yeah, I would look to free hit away from it. And I think if I'd have been free hitting, I probably wouldn't have Trent or De Bruyne. I would take a chance for the 1 game week. But otherwise, I mean, Trent is now, it's ridiculous. It's genuinely ridiculous in terms of what he's doing with points. I actually added the official account last night to say, basically, don't mess about with him next year. He's got to be at least 9 million. If he's 8.5, he'd be the first player on my team sheet. His returns now have become ridiculous. If he was a midfield player rather than defender, and he was picking up a few extra attacking returns to balance out the clean sheets that he's getting, everybody would be screaming that he should be 10 million. He has the same amount as FPL points this season as Sadio Mane. None of us would hesitate to captain Sadio Mane. He is only 10 FPL points short of Mohamed Salah. He is 6 FPL points short of Kevin De Bruyne. He has 16 more FPL points than the highest scoring forward, Jamie Vardy. So when people say, 9 million, no, look at the numbers. And it's not like he didn't provide this last season as well, right? So last season, just looking at the numbers now, he finished on 185 points. So he's already comfortably better at that. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's genuinely ridiculous. If he's, I suspect the game will just put him in at 8 million, and they won't want to go higher than that for a defender. And it'll be an automatic for me. I've already said on the Patreon podcast we've done this morning, which we'll release for patrons in about an hour or so, I will probably captain Trent for a few games for the remainder of this season. Stop being fearful of it, basically. But yeah, don't mind the free hit if you want to avoid City Liverpool players. If you're in an indecision and you've got quite a stock of 4 or more of them, then I think, yeah, it's probably a good week to trust to go against. Because there's good fixtures for other teams as well, right? You can go and target into Wolves against Villa, Leicester against Everton if you fancy it. You might even now fancy Spurs against Sheffield United, although I would avoid, by the way, I would avoid Spurs players on a free hit. It might even be better going one defensively rather than one offensively. Those are words I didn't think I'd be saying at any point this season. Arsenal got Norwich. If Aubameyang doesn't play in the Cup against Sheffield United at the weekend, then Aubameyang is comfortably the best captain choice next week. So, yeah, I absolutely don't have a problem with going that way if you want to, and anyone wants to go that way. Also, Recluse is in. Hey, Amir's mate. He's Asmir. Yes, for those who won't have seen my Champ Man FPL stream and perhaps haven't seen on Twitter, I'm recording a podcast tomorrow with Bosnia goalkeeper, currently AC Milan understudy and former Portsmouth, Stoke and Chelsea Premier League goalkeeper Asmir Begovic tomorrow on his podcasting platform, which he wants it to be FPL based. I presume it'll probably be half hour to 45 minutes or so. And I presume, I don't know, that Asmir will probably post that tomorrow. Very much looking forward to it. That was a very honourable thing to see in my DMs yesterday, that I had a DM from Asmir Begovic. Kind of crazy. But yeah, honoured that he's approached and asked. I'm really looking forward to it. Benny Blanco says, afternoon, James, would you say getting the priority for game week 33 is to get a Liverpool midfield back or an extra City mid in? I'm on KDB at the moment, but no Mane and Salah yet. Well, my approach, Benny, probably at the moment would be Jesus before Mane or Salah. That's probably my approach at the moment. I just really like the way I've been able to spread the funds with no Mane or no Salah. And it's not that I won't change my mind. I may very well do so. If I think I do, I think I would probably still edge towards Mane. It's just a preferential preference that I have. There's no science or particular data behind that. But yeah, last night hasn't particularly changed my mind and to make me think I need a sudden urge to get Mane or Salah because they did really well against a very poor team last night. In the same way, it hasn't particularly at this moment given me a great urge to get Anthony Martial in. I've said on my stream last night that unless I suffer any injuries tonight or anything, like 99% I'm rolling the transfer. I've got a very strong bench. I'm going to be leaving people like a Merrick Laporte on it next week. The cheapest player I've got in my squad is Saka of Arsenal. And if he doesn't play against Sheffield United at the weekend, I'm going to start him against Norwich, I think. And I'm going to be in a position where I'm leaving some crazy-ass players on the bench. Right now, genuinely, seriously, I would possibly be bussing to leave Heung-min Son on the bench against Sheffield United. And you'll all go, that's mad. I just don't see him returning against Sheffield United next week, personally. I think he'll struggle going backwards against Bulldog. That's just personally how I feel. So the rage into forcing transfers, no. Roll that extra one, then take 2 frees or a mini wild card for a -4 or a -8 if I decide I want to reshuffle it come game week 33 is a better platform for myself personally. We can all get so tempted in by players who have great days like Martial yesterday and completely forget that every time we own Anthony Martial, he generally feels like shit and he completely frustrates. Now, it could be new circumstances, etc., that he might go on a mad one. And United obviously look much stronger now with Rashford, Fernandes, Pogba back in. It's the first time, obviously, yesterday was the first time essentially that they'd already started together because obviously Pogba's been out for so long. And it could be that now suddenly it's better for Martial. I also think that Greenwood playing on the right is better for United now than Daniel James. And actually, the United player I would be considering getting most if I want to reshuffle things is Mason Greenwood. I think it's a great shout. Put him in there, play him when I think he will play, leave him out when I don't think he will. I think he's a really, really interesting option, actually, Mason Greenwood, in the coming weeks. I think, for me, it's unquestionable now that he's a better option than James in that position. And he just looks so talented. I think playing now as well without the pressure of a crowd, etc., would be very good for him. 4.3 million forward. That's where I've got my eyes on, because it's very simple then for me with those 2 free transfers in game week 33 to potentially go Dominic Calvert-Lewin down to Mason Greenwood, Danny Ings up to Jesus. Sorted. That's more where my mindset is at the moment. I understand the fear of not going Mane, Salah. Nobody's saying they're not generally overall probably the best captaincy options knocking about. I'm not putting anyone off. It's just a strategy that I've gone for at the moment. As I've just said, I'm probably likely to still go without Mane, Salah, Martial, Rashford. Must be mad, aren't I? Angus McPhail says, after watching United yesterday, would you agree, albeit Sheffield United were depleted, etc., that the potential of that Bruno-Pogba tandem is scary for everyone else? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that nutmeg Paul Pogba pulled on Sander Berg, my goodness, mate. Man should have retired there and then. Yeah, he was good, Pogba, wasn't he? Fernandes was great as well. He was on the edge of absolutely everything. He's completely uplifted that football team to give them self-belief. And you've gone from the feeling with United of feeling like they really struggle for creativity to looking at them yesterday with Pogba, Fernandes, Greenwood with his technical ability, again, is so much better than James. James offers different in terms of his counter-attacking speed, etc. Not that Greenwood's slow, he's obviously not. And Rashford, I thought, was really creative yesterday, really, really suited to the tempo of the game, looks really fit again now. So suddenly United have got potentially 4 very creative players around Martial, which when you lead back to that makes it feel mad that I might not go for Martial, for example. But I'm happy to have Fernandes, Maguire, look towards Greenwood, as I said. In terms of the prospect for them, yes, it's absolutely scary. I think if I was a Leicester fan at the moment, I'd begin to be getting a little bit worried because league table wise, that's starting to tighten up. Leicester have drawn 2 games that, I mean, those were fair results really, probably in both games, would have not overly impressed. They've got Everton next week, don't win that, and suddenly they're really going to be kind of smelling United, Chelsea and Wolves all breathing down their neck. And I think the fear really might start to sink in for them. So from thinking all the time that Leicester would definitely still be in the top 4, I'm now not so certain at all. I mean, if Chelsea beat City tonight as well, which I wouldn't expect, and with United flying, at the moment you can only see United winning their remaining games with the fixtures they've got, which includes Leicester on the final day, which could be incredibly interesting actually all of a sudden. I think United are now the 3rd best team in the league. The options that it gives them, I think it's gone very understated that the solidity of the back 4 regularly playing together, that Shaw, Lindelof, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, is making them a lot stronger. And yeah, it's powerful. They suddenly look like an offensive team. I still think they'll have a massive problem next season in terms of trying to find the consistency to get anywhere near Manchester City and Liverpool. You know City are going to come back strong. I'm absolutely certain of it. And even if Liverpool dip off what looks like it's probably going to be around about the 100-point mark, United have still got a huge, huge way to go to be getting anywhere near them levels. So I wouldn't say they're a title challenger for next year, but if you ask me right now, I would expect them to finish 3rd. And as it looks, I think they'll finish top 4, United, I would expect at the moment. But the key will be consistency. And I would say I think that the game on Tuesday that they have at Brighton, they will find will be one of the more difficult games that they have left. Brighton may well set up in the tactical manner that will cause United some issues. And guessing how Potter will set up is very difficult. But I think if they go with that 4-2-2 that they've done occasionally, that may really surprise United and give them some real issues, suddenly Pogba's going to be constantly over his shoulder looking for people like Moy or Gross if Brighton can get a foothold in the game. So I actually think that's a really challenging fixture for United on Tuesday. I would expect them to win, but I think it's one of the more difficult ones that they've got left. Clean sheet wipeouts in the chat this afternoon, James. Similar question to Benny. Do you think it's necessary to get back a Liverpool mid, or best to stick with the plan of avoiding the spreading of funds? Has everyone just copied my plan here? I assumed everybody else had one of mine or Salah. Don't do what I do. Take my opinions on board and play it any way you want to. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be buying Mane or Salah this week before Manchester City. So you've got time to reassess. We can look at this sort of thing again next week. It's just not a priority for me, to be very honest with you. Joe Finley Badders in the chat says, hello, Joe. Hope you're well. Paul Jones, our friend, Sky player in FPL, is in. Says, hi, James. No question. Just want to say thanks for the continued concert on his ridiculous schedule. Cheers, mate. I much appreciate that, Paul. Thank you very much, mate. Late Riser 12 is in. Hi, James. Given the Aurea Davis thing that Jomo is doing now, please don't ever call him that again. I'll block you, mate. Does it make Son a slightly poorer FPL option? He was so wide. Would you be confident to cap him this game week? No, I've just said I might even leave him on the bench this week. The problem with Son is, and if those who remember my podcast around February time, where I kept saying every week, he's not playing well. He's not playing well. Now, you've all watched the last two games, so you're now thinking what I was thinking 4 months ago. But as bad as he was being in that period, he kept getting returns. And one of the things that really put me off in that February period, exactly what you're saying there, is basically at times in this system ending up at left wing back. And therefore, he shouldn't be an option. However, he's been playing that position for a while and the returns were still there. I thought he was really average on Tuesday night against West Ham. Yet, he's assisted Kane's goal and he's like half a foot offside that's cost him a goal. Suddenly there, you're looking at goal, assist, clean sheet added on bonus, plus probably hitting top bonus. And he's getting a very, very different return. Essentially, you're now looking at a 13-point return. So extremely fine margins between him having a 3-pointer on Tuesday night and having a 13-pointer. I wouldn't advise anybody now to get Heung-min Son. I definitely wouldn't advise to get him for the Sheffield United fixture. I think they'll be back stronger, Sheffield United, and it will be a very difficult game for Tottenham. So definitely wouldn't advise to get him in next week. Don't overplay what you saw with Sheffield United yesterday. And remember the wham that Newcastle was off the back of a red card as well. So don't overplay it. If O'Connell's back, that's the key for Sheffield United. O'Connell, that's the key, because they don't have the balance of the overlapping runs from centre half. Robinson, the young boy who's come in, is just not capable of doing it at this moment. Egan will be back from a ban. Suddenly, if they've got O'Connell back, they're back to full strength. And it's a very, very different proposition. In terms of beyond game week 32 and the fear for Son, then yeah, it's exact fears that I had 4 months ago. But as I said, it never stopped his returns. And he still returned Tuesday night as well. So you know his explosiveness, you know what he's capable of. If you were looking now to buy a Son or Martial, generally, if I could go back and change my mind, yeah, sure, in hindsight, I probably would have got Martial, wouldn't I? But no, I would not advise buying Heung-min Son at the moment. Benny Blanco says, now that former Premier League players are asking for your FPL insight, would you finally consider yourself an expert? Absolutely not, mate. I'm no expert as an FPL manager. Not at all. No way. Hate the term. Hate the term. If you want to say pro, I don't mind that. I don't mind that as much in terms of content pro or something. FPL expert, no way at all. All I do is give my opinions. My FPL ranks do not stand up high enough for anybody to be calling me an expert. And by the way, definitely neither does fucking Sudges. BFWG86 says, hey, James, big thanks to you and Sudge for everything this season. You saved my team. Must be an expert. Do you think it's worth transferring Salah out for Son? Thanks again, mate. I don't think I need to cover that again, do I? No, I don't. Scala says, will Viduka get his hat-trick? So At the time of recording, I covered this very, very briefly. For the Champ Man FPL players who've been following, there's a game happening in that simulation at the moment. Leeds United are beating Blackburn 4-0. Viduka has scored twice. Leeds are now down to 10 men, though, so I would not expect that hat-trick to be incoming, no. Richard Roman says, all right, James, best captain option for 32. Also, do you think Pogba will disrupt Bruno points? To cover the Pogba disrupting Bruno points, possibly yes. I didn't see anything yesterday that made me fear that Bruno Fernandes won't be getting points. And as it stands right now, Bruno Fernandes is probably my captain again in game week 32. I'm not put off by this sort of thing. As much as I said I think Brighton will give United a tougher game, United may perversely find that they get into better attacking areas than they would do in certain other games. Although Brighton defended very well at Leicester on Tuesday afternoon. So I think Fernandes is still probably likely my captain for game week 32. I think the alternative is Jimenez at Villa. I'm just a little concerned about the 3-day turnaround there. Good bit of advice for everyone, just while I remember as well. If you've got Raul Jimenez, stick him as your vice captain this week, if you don't want to captain him, because of the distance between games. Man City and Liverpool, for example, is until 7 days from now. We have a deadline a Saturday morning. Chances are you'll know the Wolves team. If Jimenez starts, stick him as vice captain. That should be almost automatic for people who have him but don't want to captain him this week. Stick him as your vice. It's a very safe play to make, considering what can happen with COVID, etc. Although, touch wood, so far we haven't had any major issues other than Marco Stiepermann at Norwich. I don't think Pogba will diminish Fernandes' returns in FPL. I think for the Sky players, and just to mention it very briefly, it could be bad news in terms of Fernandes' domination on a game. But in terms of impact in FPL returns, no major concerns there. Cole JB says, at which minute will Mr. Rennie get out his red card? You asked me that a good while ago, and I can tell you the answer to that question was 65 minutes. And it just is not going to make sense to a lot of people. I'll tell you that Leeds' clean sheet has gone in that Champ Man FPL game. Actually, Marcus Bent has scored for Blackburn, assisted by David Dunn. And to everybody else, that's just going to sound really weird, isn't it? Rudy Eichford. Hi, James. Sorry if I butchered your name there, mate. Swap Maguire and Vardy to Van Aanholt and Rashford. Go near Van Aanholt. What, just because Palace have got Burnley? Have a deeper look at Crystal Palace's fixtures and what you saw last night. No. Wouldn't take out Maguire. A little bit cutted that went Maguire over Wan-Bissaka. And Vardy, what did you get him in for? Did you get him in just for game week 32 against Brighton? Was that the plan? Did you get him in for Watford and Brighton? Remember what the plan was? Yes, a little bit frustrated at the moment, but I don't think it's necessarily a priority change. I think you might find it's better holding an extra week and then deciding what you want to do, possibly maybe with Jesus, if you haven't got, for example. So I think 32, for those who are not dominated by mass Man City and Liverpool coverage, is a good week to roll a transfer, I think. Lewis Hitson, have we ever picked a game week team whilst players are playing other competitions in the same week? Hard to make decisions that have to be locked in before the FA Cup games have even kicked off. Yeah, we will have done that before with, say, a League Cup final. Where, say, like a couple of years ago, Arsenal played Man City on the Sunday in the league, didn't they? And then they played, in the cup final. And then they played each other in the league 3 or 4 days later. So, yeah, this is something we should have been through before. It's obviously different in the sense there are 8 Premier League teams who are playing FA Cup fixtures this weekend. And it's something to be aware of. It's another reason why I would recommend, if you've got Jimenez and you know he's going to start on Saturday, if there's a league team, stick him as your vice if you're not going to captain him. He's a really, really strong play. Just to give you a little bit of security. So obviously with those games, you can have injuries and the likes as well. Scala says, will you keep Sterling and Jesus for Liverpool if they both start versus Chelsea? Well, I don't own either of those two players. But I would have if you're asking for yourself, Scala, what City's team tonight has no bearing on what the team will be against Liverpool next Thursday. They've got a FA Cup game with Newcastle in between, so I wouldn't read too much into the lineup tonight. Ash says, hi, James, do you think Joe Hart for free would be a better backup to Greater than Hennessy? Worth a look for Palace? Probably not, actually. No. Interesting situation at Burnley developing, actually, which is possibly worth keeping an eye on. Well, a few tabloid papers have commented this morning and said they believe there's been a falling out between Sean Dyche and the chairman, and Dyche may walk away at the end of the season. There's a number of Burnley players coming out of contract as well, which could put them in a very dangerous position for next season. So the mood around Turf Moor is not the best at the moment. Is Joe Hart better than Wayne Hennessy? No, in my opinion. Was he? Yeah, he was. We all forget it. Joe Hart 8-9 years ago was an extremely good goalkeeper, but for one reason or another, it's gone. Lewis Whitson will have TAE even if he costs 10 million. I might as well. He won't be 10 million, so don't worry about it. Paul Jones, FPL won't get it right and go higher than 8 million for Trent. Won't want to upset the masses by charging so much for a defender. We'll be pushing 11 million in Sky. I agree with that, Paul. I think that assessment's spot on. I would expect Trent to be 8 million, and then when that game goes live, it'd be the first fucking player in it. Adam English says Magnus Carlsen up to #1 in the world in FPL. What are your thoughts on it, James? Chess and FPL correlation. Yes, I did notice that this morning. Someone posted in our Slack channel that he'd gone back top of the league. It's interesting because he obviously does it based on strategy quite a lot in terms of his decision making. He obviously must know his football in a way as well, and I don't think we should overestimate that. The way Magnus has always approached things, from what I can tell, is where can he get an advantage? Where can he take an advantage of his immediate opponents when he's been in that upper echelons position? It's worth saying the game week hasn't finished yet, and I don't know, his game week might be all over, for example, so he might not stay in that position come the end of the evening, but he's having an incredible season. He's obviously very strategy based. I think at the end of this season, I'd like to look back on his season and assess some of the decisions that he's made, but I think that's something to be done at the end of the season and then see what we can learn from that. Zek 007 says Pepe versus Norwich. Thoughts? As in to buy another one. If he doesn't play against Sheffield United in the FA Cup on Sunday, then it might be one where you can take a one game week punt. I would not want him in my squad otherwise. Ricky Saunders is in saying, all right, Paolo, Ricky, hope you're well, mate. Much better Tuesday, mate. Come you Spurs. Danny McDonald, do you think there will be a regression in performance by Liverpool next season? I would think so, considering how difficult it is to win back-to-back leagues and their luck with injuries. Yeah, I mean, as I said, City are going to come back harder. When we say regression, what? Regression to a mean of finishing around 90 points, which ordinarily will win you a Premier League title. Then, yeah, I mean, what Liverpool have done the last 2 years, to think that they're possibly going to push over 200 points for 2 consecutive seasons is... you'll never get beaten, right? That's incredible if they pull that off. Well, are they likely to dip it a little bit next year? Yeah, but what's the dip? Lose 2 or 3 games? Draw 3 or 4 games? That's what we're talking about as a dip now for a Liverpool or Man City, isn't it? So not enough that would affect your fantasy decision making anyway. FPL Cobbler, you answered my question before you got to it. Greenwood, a great shout. Yeah, very, very closely watching that one. Ben Baker, would you go Foden as a 5th mid or Greenwood as a 12th man? I think Foden will get a lot of minutes after Liverpool. I don't mind both of them as shouts, actually. Prefer Greenwood as the shout, actually. Dominic Jervis, hi, James. Best Man City mid outside KDB for value. I'm thinking Mahrez in a couple of game weeks. Yeah, I would agree with that, although as... mentioned above there by Dominic, Foden is a very good shout as well. Was he 5.1 or something, Phil Foden? I mean, he can sit there, right? You could stick him in if he ain't played the previous game, for example. I mean, he came off the bench and scored against Arsenal as well, right? So I think the really pleasing thing is to see them attacking returns coming from now as well. It'll be so much higher price next season. The reason I went for Mahrez on the wild card pre-game week 30, by the way, was, I can't remember who posted it, but someone posted about his minutes over the Christmas period. So basically, over the 4 fixtures over Christmas, Mahrez started 3, played 90 minutes in all of them, played 45 minutes in the other. So I just made a choice that any of the City attacking guys can go mental any time. But with games in short period, I just worked off that he was more likely to play twice than most others. And I didn't expect to play twice, but I thought it might be 90 minutes and 45 again, something like that. And I guess it wasn't far off, right? He came off basically bang on 60 minutes in the second game, I think, didn't he? And it was also a quote that I found from Guardiola saying that basically he's got no muscles in his legs, which sounds ridiculous. But Guardiola's belief is that it part in turn means that Mahrez doesn't really pick up injuries. He doesn't pull muscle strains because he's quite skinny, frankly. And therefore he doesn't suffer with the other players that need power. In that sense, he's quite an unnatural footballer. And that's why I came to that conclusion that he seems to be getting more minutes. That was the only theory behind it, by the way. But I think, yes, with that in mind, again, I think he's certainly a favourite, isn't he? Look, if he's not going to play an hour, he's going to play half hour. And that's probably regularly how it's going to look for Riyad Mahrez, I should imagine. Clean Sheet Wiper says, another question. Do you think the relegation scrap might lack the intensity of previous years with teams fighting for their lives to stay up? Seems to be lacking drive in yesterday's game. Yeah, it's a shame seeing Eddie Howe's face after the game. Bournemouth looked like a man who wanted to finish. Yeah, where do I go with this? No shots on target. I mean, Wolves only had 2, in fairness. The Jimenez goal was Wolves' first. But he looked like a manager to me who I think even if they stay up, he might walk away at the end of the season, which sounds ridiculous. And I know our Bournemouth correspondent at AFC BNG would not agree with that opinion. It's just a personal opinion of mine that he looks like someone who is beginning to feel the stress of it and is no longer enjoying it. The problem is Bournemouth, Villa and West Ham are really going to struggle for goals. And the way the games are working, that's why the intensity is going to feel a lot less. I mean, what is West Ham and Villa going to be like as an atmosphere if the ground is half empty and they're level on points when they play each other in game week 38? Of course, it's not going to feel like a normal game. Will the tackles be flying in? I think on the importance, it probably will have more intensity than what you're currently seeing in other games. But it's very hard. It must almost be like a haunting experience for players playing through this. And it must be eerie in a strange way. In the back of your mind, you must have little things constantly thinking about, there's no crowd, this is weird. I don't know how you adjust to that. It must be really difficult, actually. I think in terms of that, what you say in terms of the drive of games and the intensities, why it's not feeling like such a relegation scrap, what you're getting because of the conditions is far more often better teams are going to beat weaker teams. So I think we're in a position now, genuinely. Brighton are on, 32 points? I think they'll need a few more, but not a lot more. I think one more win and Brighton will be safe. I'm beginning to think that staying up could be as low as sort of 34 points under these conditions, because it essentially becomes 2 teams on neutral venue, and in most cases, West Ham, Villa and Bournemouth are playing teams that are better than them, and therefore will likely get beat. The home advantage is dead. Look what's happened to Norwich this week, Southampton and Everton. I feel a little bit sorry for them. If they'd have had both of those games in front of a home crowd, it could have been very, very different. And if they'd have won them both, they would have been level on points with those other 3 teams, and then feeling like they had the momentum to get out of it. So that's why better teams are going to beat inferior teams. You're going to get less shock results. Like, you're not going to get in a random week that Villa are going to beat Liverpool 4-2 at Anfield in a couple of weeks. Not it's an extreme example. Not that would happen anyway. But you know what I'm saying? The madness that sometimes you get in the Premier League, I just don't think you're going to get it. It felt like, did anybody else get the thing when Villa scored yesterday? It was a massive surprise because a team that was struggling had scored an equaliser against the team that many people had been considering as like very good for defensive potential in FPL. I was shocked when I heard that Villa had scored, and having seen the goal, I can now understand why it happened, because it was a very strange goal, actually, if you look back on it. And that's the problem. These sides, essentially, Villa, West Ham, Bournemouth, they've got to score first, or they're in huge trouble to get back into games. They've got to be scoring first. Whether that means that they should take a philosophy of being quite adventurous in the opening 20 minutes of the games, try and get a goal and then revert and sit off, might be a short-term philosophy in the heat, etc. at the moment. Quality-wise, they're not as good as others. The league table under these conditions is going to lie even less. Dominic Jones, do you think Kane will start going on a run now? Yes. Robert Warnock says, evening all. By the way, though, not an FPL option now. I wouldn't recommend buying any Spurs player before game week 32. Lamichi, hi James, thoughts on Aurea? Well, Sheffield United's problem is scoring goals. 30 goals in 32 played. I do think these conditions will suit a Mourinho team better in terms of defensive structure. He's played the same back four and goalkeeper in the same 2 games. That's helpful. I think that'll be exactly the same again against Sheffield United. Genuinely, he would be the best Spurs asset to get in game week 32. I will, however, not advise you to do that. I think there are better defensive assets at similar prices at Manchester United, for example. Danny McDonald could easily see Leicester and Chelsea missing out on top 4. Chelsea still have to play City, Liverpool and Wolves. Yeah, and Leicester finished with still got to play Arsenal, which I know you're going, laugh Arsenal. And they've still got to play Tottenham. But they could easily lose the 2 games, right? And Manchester United on the final day as well. So that Leicester fans, I think, will begin to be thinking, nervous. And then they're also going to have to watch, obviously, Chelsea and United play again before, and Wolves all play again before they play next Wednesday. And suddenly it could look quite tight. Ben Baker thinks United and Wolves for top 4. But no credit for Spurs, guys. Joking. I'm not expecting that. BFWG86, are there any differentials you've got your eye on? Looking at around 7.5 million cap for a midfielder or defender player to help keep me ahead in our mini league. Thanks for your insight, mate. I think United defensively, if you're not on, is certainly worth looking. And I think Greenwood. I really think Greenwood's a great shout. I think people will be slow on Jesus. If you're brave enough to go straight in after the Liverpool game, he's certainly going to be a differential. Absolutely. What's his ownership now overall? 4% or something? I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? So he's going to be a great prospect. Son is potentially, Kane potentially as well. Differentials, I know you're looking at a lower value than that. Lamela could even fall into a very short-term option, I think, between game weeks 33 and 35. Keep an eye on Dele Alli's performance against Sheffield United next week, because Lamela's producing more at the moment. And actually, I'd be playing Lamela ahead of Dele Alli at this moment. Others to keep an eye on. Ismaila Sarr is a shout at Watford. I like Watford's run of fixtures that they've got coming up. Essentially, it starts with Burnley today. I like Ismaila Sarr as a shout, actually. He's probably who I would prefer in that range of in and around sort of 6 to 7 million. Robert Warnock said, I've doubled up at the back at Wolves, Saiss and Doherty with Jimenez up front. Seems to be a cost-effective solution so far. Any thoughts? Yeah, absolutely no problem with that at all, Robert. That's fine. Donna Boyle, disappointed with Richarlison. Is he worth holding a swap out for Bilver or Pulisic or any other options? Have 3 Wolves, 3 Man United, Salah, KDB. The answer there, Donna, in my opinion, would be certainly don't make any rash decisions. Wait till Saturday, the information of tonight. But genuinely, my opinion would be give him another game. Roll if you can. I really think this is a strong week to be rolling the transfer. FPL Cobbler, Cole JB, there's your answer to the Rennie question. That's earlier on. Adam English, red card at Ellen Road. All the chat man guys are in with their chats. Ian Davis, the ranks will get better now you're a full-time FPL pro. I'm absolutely shattered. By Saturday, I'll have recorded 16 pieces of content between Monday and Saturday. Because we're actually pre-recording our Clash of the Correspondence with Mctavius and Turfy Topper tomorrow night for Monday. So, yeah, it's been a very, very full-on week. I mean, my head is so in it at the moment. So, my head being in it, can it help or be a hindrance? I think ask me the same question in a year's time. We shall see. But I'm certainly no expert. Mark Bissoni says, hey, James, will Ali get going quick enough to be an FPL asset this season? Will Jose keep him in the number 10 role? Can Son do well stuck on the left? Son can do well. Will Ali stay in the team? Probably yes. The answer to the questions is no. Ian Davis, target anyone playing Norwich virtually relegated? Yeah, didn't we all say that about Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin? I mean, very dangerous to target Arsenal before you know their team against Sheffield United. I don't have Aubameyang, not in my thoughts. Just not going to go near it. I think Aubameyang on paper is the best captaincy in game week 32. I think it's very dangerous. Our Arsenal correspondent 35, who has said to us on Clash of the Correspondence, being recorded pre the restart, that he thought, looking at Arsenal's schedule, that Aubameyang would be absolutely ripe to be rotated against Norwich. Yeah, he'll get minutes, no doubt about it. But start when you want a captain. I'm telling you, it's really, really dangerous when you're not going to know the team lineup against Sheffield United on the Sunday. And should Arsenal lose at Southampton this evening, which, in fairness, I don't expect them to, then surely they've got to prioritise that Sheffield United game to revive anything left for their season. And then Aubameyang plays at Sheffield United. Does he then play Southampton 3 days later, Sheffield United, Norwich 3 days later? It's dangerous. Know the risk. Phil B says, worth transferring out Son for Martial. Oh, Jesus. It's not something I'm going to do, I don't think. But I understand you're thinking. I like what Sonny has in terms of the 3 fixtures after Sheffield United. And although, to be fair, I like United's fixtures all the way through. I think for me, I really don't want to restrict myself on the possibility of getting Greenwood, actually. That's really where my thoughts are at the moment. Benny Blanco, I know you hate these questions, so why are you asking it, mate? But he's asking it because he's selfish. What combo do you like more going forward? Rashford, Doherty and Greenwood, or Rashford, Wan-Bissaka and Dominic Calvert-Lewin? I like the Greenwood option, to be very honest with you. For the benefit of the Champman FPL players, it has finished 4-1 at Ellen Road between Leeds and Blackburn. I will not be covering the bonus points. Please head over to the Fantasy Champman Twitter account if you want to see that. Shamil Galani says, hope you're well. How do you feel about going on Asmir's podcast? I'm very honoured that he's approached me and asked me to go on. Really, really looking forward to it. I mean, I would have been one hell of a dickhead to say, sorry, mate, I haven't got time. I mean, he's picked the worst fucking week imaginable, I can tell you. But no, I would have been a complete idiot to say no. No, quite honoured. It'd be really nice to have a chat with a current pro footballer for half hour. That's something I've never done before. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hello, Mohammed Ali. I hope you're well as well. FPL Fanatic. Hi, James. What's going on with Tanguy and Ndombele? Lad says he won't play for Jose again. Well, there was rumours reported in France saying that they've had a bus stop. There's no communication between the two anymore. But Mourinho has since quashed it and said it's rubbish. I think the fact that he's not been used at all is very, very strange that he didn't bring him on against West Ham the other night, because he's made more of an issue, even if he didn't want to just put him on a pitch for 5-10 minutes once it went to 2-0. It wouldn't have been an issue. But, okay, you're integrating him back in. Cool, that's great. That would have been better rather than now looking at it and going, right, why haven't you used your £60 million midfielder for 2 games? When against United, we desperately needed some fresh bodies on the pitch. And then against West Ham, there was no excuse not to be using. He only used 3 subs again. I don't think he even knew the rules, the prick. There was no excuse not to be using Ndombele or Ryan Sessegnon or any other alternative, because the game was absolutely won. He's a super talent, but he's got to get himself fit, Ndombele. That's where I would have sympathy for Mourinho. If Ndombele is not at 100% fitness yet still, then that's a massive issue. Talent-wise, incredible. He has the potential to do for Tottenham in a football match what Paul Pogba does for Manchester United. That's the capability of what I believe his potential is. But fitness-wise, he is miles off. Ali Jahangirif, what do you think of Liverpool big hitters like Mane and Salah after they win the league? Still have TA, can't decide numbers yet. I wouldn't have any impact on Liverpool winning the league to decision-making. They're going to go for that points total. They want it. They're not in the FA Cup. They don't have any Europe to worry about at the end of the season. What exactly will they be resting players for? It's worth saying they have a spell of games where they play 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, and I'm sure there will be rotation. But what's the fear? What's the fear? If you said to me now, right, you're going to captain Sadio Mane 3 games, as they got, was it Villa, Burnley and Brighton 3 games in a row? You said, right, you're going to captain him 3 games in a row, and he'll start 2 and get you half hour in the other game. I wouldn't be that bothered by that. I mean, what could he do in half hour as a substitute against Villa or Burnley at the moment? Like serious damage. So I really wouldn't worry about it. I think in terms of captaincy choices, it is a good idea to recognise good spacing between games. So a little fear for myself with, say, for Fernandes next Tuesday is knowing that United, of course, play Norwich on Saturday in the FA Cup. Again, I'm not going to know the team. So is that a gamble to go Fernandes as captain? Possibly it is. Whereas I could have better spacing off of other games. But there aren't too many good spacing ones next week. One obvious one is Spurs. 9-day break from the West Ham game till Sheffield United. But I'm telling you, please don't captain Heung-min Son or Harry Kane or any other Spurs alternatives next week. It will be a much tighter game, and Sheffield United will be much better. I can near on guarantee that for you. Dominic Jervis, think it could be time for Eddie to have a break. Very young manager, legend for us, got to the promised land, but the zest, determination, optimism has gone. Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, that's quite sad reading that. It's going back to my comments earlier about Eddie Howe, and I think he knows. Yeah, there's a haunting look on his face, and you very rarely see it. That he looked in a bad place. I felt for him, and I don't really give a shit about other teams, but I felt for him looking at that at the end of the game yesterday. FPL Fanatic, the only upset that relegation battling team is going to pull out is against Arsenal. And is that even an upset anymore? You said it, mate, not me. Pete Haley, hi, James. Do you think 2 up front is enough? And what 2 would you go for? I've got Rashford and Jimenez and think of downgrading Ings to Martial. Well, Martial's obviously listed as a midfielder in FPL, Pete. So I don't know if that's possibly a Sky question. I'm looking to go towards Jimenez, Jesus and Greenwood. I think that's where I'm heading with it, I think. FPL Penguin, surely Alba's got to do something versus Norwich. Yeah, of course. Listen, everything I've said, he could play the final 25 minutes and score twice. Know the risk, that's all. Muhammad Ali, James, my overall rank is 650. Very good. And I'm set on Nketiah captain against Norwich. Tell me I'm mad. Nothing is ever mad. I don't hate that. I don't hate that. But you know right now he's no more than 50-50 to start, because of the Sheffield United FA Cup game. Why would it? And I mean, if Nketiah plays today against Southampton and then starts against Sheffield United on Sunday, where for whatever reason Arteta's decided it's a better option than Lacazette, who is struggling for confidence in front of goal, then you're fucked. Quite frankly, you're a strong possibility looking at a 1-pointer. Again, he could return in injury time. Is it mad? No, it's brave. And I don't mind brave moves. And nobody else around your rank is going to follow that strategy. Go for it. But I wouldn't. Bilal Qureshi, who do you think will be top scorer in the Prem? Is Aubameyang a trap for game week 32? Yes, I've answered that on Aubameyang. Top scorer. It could well be Mane or Salah due to the catching. I'll be very honest. I'm not quite sure how far behind they are, actually, but one of them could well do the catching. If Vardy shows, because I think Vardy probably, to finish top goal scorer, would probably only need maybe 4 goals in the final 8 or so. I think might actually be enough. Who do I think might top score between now and the end? I wouldn't rule out Harry Kane with the fixtures that Spurs have. But again, he's not a good choice, in my opinion, for game week 32. Wait another game and then assess again. Arif Echo, hi James, do you still support behind Jose since his appointment? Because I'm struggling to do that right now. Look, I mean, you know my opinions on Mourinho. I'm not a fan. The tactical, we did this on the Patreon pod yesterday. The whole not allowing the left back to go forward was ridiculous. As soon as Ben Davies went forward in the last 5 minutes of the first half on Tuesday night, we looked like a team. And from there, the game became quite comfortable for us. I hate that the first thought is always negative. He'll tell you that that's not true. I'm telling you he's a liar. His first thought is always negative. It's protection. He's a manager that specialises in minimising risk. That's all he is. In my opinion, he's not a great tactician. I don't even believe he's a great coach. He's a manager who is exceptional at minimising risk. That's his greatest strength. Am I behind him? Yes, because I want Tottenham Hotspur to win every single football club. What I would love is that we pull off a miracle, finish 4th, and Real Madrid have a heart attack and decide they want him as manager again, and then he fucks off. That would be the ideal, perfect scenario for me. I hope Mourinho proves me wrong. I hope in a couple of years I'm sitting here and going, he's the best manager we've ever had, and you can shoot me if it happens. I can't foresee that as a possibility. I think his methods are outdated. Bilal says, what do you think Spurs' ambitions are for next season? Any signings you want, new signings, new manager, etc.? There's nothing I want other than to see us play good football. That's all I want at the moment. That's all I want. There were little patches. Tuesday night was pleasing. There was even a 5-10 minute spell after we scored against Manchester United, which were enjoyable for a brief period. But I want us to dominate. I want us to play well. I want us to play with tempo. I want us to play without fear. And I want our left back to be allowed to go forward when we're playing opposition that's inferior to us, certainly. That's what I want most, to be requesting certain signings or anything like that in the summer. I think it's very clear Spurs are not particularly going to be playing big money. If Spurs can find good young fullbacks and a good young enforcer of a central midfielder, somebody essentially to replace Sissoko, because Sissoko does a great job for us, but technical wise is very poor. That's what I'd want. If somewhere they can find me a fullback on either side and a proper central midfielder who can then, depending on fixture, dovetail well with Winks, Lo Celso or Sissoko, that I will be happy with. And that will do. That will do for the moment. And to be honest, I'm not expecting Spurs to, as I said, Spurs spend money at all. Angus McPhail, amazing that Jose has complained about the change to 5 subs, but doesn't seem to know he has them in game. I'm fucking shambolic. FPL fanatic, I'm so confused about what to do with Mahrez. Surely keep him or move him to a nailed on Martial. Difficult one. Again, the cup game makes it awkward at the weekend. That's one I'd be tempted to make the move. But leave yourself the plan to go back to it if you want to, or look at others. I mean, Martial against Brighton or Mahrez against Liverpool becomes a no-brainer, doesn't it? I think, yeah, as long as the rest of your squad is strong enough and you're not walking into further problems in 34. Another suggestion might be, if you still got it, is the free hit an option for you when you probably may well want Mahrez on the other side come game week 33. FPL Penguin says, do you think Spurs need to bring in another striker for next season for backup for Kane? Or do you think Parrott could be given more chances next season? See, here's the thing. Parrott, by the way, potentially has attitude issues, similar to what happened with Marcus Edwards. Talent-wise, it's there. Let's hope that the talent comes through, because it still annoys me about Marcus Edwards, because he was such a wonderful talent. He was the most talented footballer at the squad, in the squad. Genuinely. Around that 16-17 season when we nearly won the league, the most talented footballer in that squad was Marcus Edwards in terms of his technical ability. But he did not have the attitude to rise through. Now he's playing, in Portugal. He sounds like he's doing all right at Guimarães, I think he's at. Troy Parrott is apparently hanging around with the wrong people. Now, I hope Troy Parrott sorts that out, because he's got a great talent. And actually, in terms of his style, he's the perfect foil for Kane in terms of an understudy. Do Spurs need to buy another forward? Listen, Spurs fans will always be sitting there shouting their head off every time Kane gets injured. The last time was worse because obviously Son got injured as well, and Ali wasn't overly performing great. Bergwijn had to be integrated. Lamela was in that injured. When they're all fit, there's multiple players who can play up that position. And essentially, the best understudy to Kane is Son. And at the moment, so if Son goes up front, you're playing with like Bergwijn and Lucas. So, I mean, Lucas can play there as well. Bergwijn, Lucas out wide, for example. Is it the worst thing in the world? Or Lamela plays wide. When everyone's fit, Spurs have the depth. Everybody died on their arse over the winter time, right? Signing the forward is not a priority, in my opinion. It has to be fullbacks and central midfield area. There's enough attacking talent there to work with. Jay says, I'm a bit behind on the stream, but I just heard you talk about Sheffield United and young Jack Robinson. Just thought I'd let you know he's 26. Is he? Fuck! That's the old Jesse Lingard mistake there. Thank you, Jay. I didn't know that. Mark Bissoni, what's with all the Greenwood love? Surely you can't start him in your team. Bench option at best. Why? Why wouldn't you start him if you think he's going to start? He's a super talent. And United have fixtures you expect them to win. My personal opinion is that there's no issue with that. Ryan Henderson of Everton Leicester went stale. Well, Everton weren't great yesterday, but they got the result. And so Everton have just kept 2 clean sheets in a row against Liverpool and Norwich. Is it stale? Listen, Everton's season is going towards an anticlimax, but that was the case months ago. It's all about Carlo Ancelotti getting it in the right place with the system he wants, which is generally 4-4-2 that can potentially move into a 5 at the back in certain scenarios without the ball against stronger sides. That's how he wants to play. With Leicester, there's a worry. Because, other than Pereira, they're all fit. I thought James Justin had a nervous game against Brighton. He was shown up by the opposite right back. Lamptey was great for Brighton, by the way. I wouldn't be looking at the assets for either. That said, if I've still got Vardy or I've got Calvert-Lewin, for example, Richarlison, whatever you've got, I wouldn't have an issue with just carrying them again next week and then reassessing. It's very easy off the back of these early games to be making knee-jerk decisions, I think. Ali Jahangirov says, thanks for the stream, James. Keep up the good work. I'm an Arsenal fan, by the way. Still enjoy your channel. Big up. There's loads of Arsenal fans that for some reason just seem to enjoy this, mate. Ben Baker said, do you think City Liverpool will be tight and cagey or free-flowing, pretty much 0-0 or like 4-4? I think it'd be somewhere in the middle, Ben. I think it'd be somewhere in the middle. I think Manchester City will win 2-1 or so. That would be my instinct. Pete Haley says, who do you think will come up to the Prem next year? And is there any players from them teams in the Championship would you like to see in the Prem? I haven't watched enough Championship to comment, but obviously Leeds have got some super talents there at the moment. I really haven't watched enough football this year. One of the things I do want to do, I'll certainly be keeping an eye on Leeds play at 3 o'clock on Saturday. I intend to keep an eye on that one, actually. I still think Leeds and West Brom will come up. And I think Brentford might be the third. But in the playoffs, anything can happen, as you know. FPL Numbers says, loving the Greenwood, love James, super talent, and we will finish with clean sheet wipeout. It says, appreciate the stream, James. Time to grab some lunch, then get ready for the big CM FPL stream at 2:30. Expected to be full of team destroying news. Yeah, for the chat, man, guys, if you're on the YouTube, it will mean nothing for the audio. But yeah, you can catch Luke and Dave on their channel at 2:30 p.m. Do go and have a look this afternoon. It's another reason for me going a little bit earlier today. But it's also to chop up the audio to get it out ahead of the games this evening. Thanks very much for joining in, guys. In terms of content for you guys, the chat, man, will be back Saturday, 2:30 p.m. I'm also going to do a deadline stream on Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. That's UK time, in the final hour leading up to the game week 32 deadlines. If you have any last minute help you need with anything, jump on YouTube, come in, let's talk FPL for the final hour. I'll help with any decisions you have or don't have. And Suj and I will have a full feature podcast out tomorrow on Friday, reviewing all 10 games from game week 31, usual insight, etc. Expect a tweet to go out late this evening requesting for questions. Other than that, thanks very much for joining in, guys. And for the benefit of those listening on the audio, cue music, please, man child.